Everyone at Fox News was shocked when Peter Doocy said he was getting married in 2020. Years had gone by while his wife hid in plain sight. They were together, but no one knew. In 2021, when they finally got married, there were only 18 people there. She works hard and earns her own money. On their wedding anniversary, she gave birth to their first child. The shocking thing is how this power pair works behind the scenes. You'll be shocked by the truth about their friendship. Peter Doocy was born in New Jersey on July 21, 1987, into a family that Fox News royalty would call royal. Just now, his dad, Steve Doocy, took a step that would change their lives. Steve became the weather guy on the brand new Fox News channel in 1996, when Peter was 9 years old. After 2 years, Steve became a co-host on Fox and Friends, just as Peter turned 11. The timing was strange. It was only 3 years before that show became the most watched cable news show, a spot it would hold for 24 years. In 2019, President Trump reportedly gave Steve a 12 out of 10 for loyalty. Peter's birth seemed like it was written to be in the news for a long time. He was even born at the hospital run by George Washington University. The White House is only a short walk away. His life wasn't like other kids. He grew up with cameras, lights, and a great view of American politics. Steve brought him into the world early. Peter's first broadcast TV show was on Take Your Child to Work Day when he was in the 4th grade. Peter was watching Fox and Friends while other kids built Lego sets or rode bikes. Seeing his dad do interviews with leaders and famous people, the New York Times called it the most powerful TV show in America because of how much power it had. Trump said it was the most honest morning show, and he watched it every day so much that he often tweeted quotes from it. Steve even wished Peter a happy birthday live on air. There was a boy in the family pictures who looked at ease on the White House lawn and in his own backyard. Peter went to St. Albans School in Washington, D.C., which was one of the best private schools in the country, and cost tens of thousands of dollars a year to attend. But the place where he really learned was at Fox News, where he saw history happen. Around 1.5 million people watched Fox and Friends every week during those years. In some areas, it even beat morning shows on traditional broadcast networks like Today and Good Morning America. Peter did more than just watch TV. The language and flow of political talk from one of the most well-known groups in America were helping him learn. Peter's drive was clear by the time he was a senior in 2004. He got a job at Fox News when he was only 17 years old and even read sports highlights with Brian Kilmeade on air. In 2005, Peter's father happily told the world on live TV that his son would be going to Penn State. But Peter chose Villanova University instead, which shocked everyone. A turning point would happen because of that choice. In 2008, when he was a junior, he went to a political meeting with John McCain, who was running for president. A few days before, Hillary Clinton made news when she drank a whiskey shot while campaigning. McCain said yes, so Peter took the mic and asked him to join him for one. People all over the country laughed when McCain was asked the question. He said it was one of the hardest questions he had ever been asked. Peter went to Villanova from 2005 to 2009 to study political science. The cost of fees was between $35,000 and $40,000 a year. He hadn't planned to become a journalist at first. It looked like law school was more likely. But that whiskey shot conversation taught him how powerful one question can be. From then on, the road changed. College life wasn't always easy. His father was well known, and people often thought that his last name meant he was privileged or related to someone. People still sometimes think the father and son are brothers because of how much they looked alike. There was always pressure on Peter to do well, and as he tried to make his own way in the business, he often turned to his father for help. He wrote for Palestra Net and Fox News while he was in college, getting experience while dealing with the problems that come with having a well-known last name. In the media, the middle of the 2000s were a time of change. There was more cable news. But digital platforms were taking people away from traditional networks. For some, having the Doocy name opened doors, but it also meant that there were higher standards and more scrutiny. Every chance he got felt like a test to see if he belonged on his own. Most new journalists couldn't have picked a worse time to finish in May 2009 than Peter did. The country had been in the grip of the Great Recession since late 2007. It reached a high point of 10.1% in October of that year. It was even worse for new college graduates, at 17.6%, from $35,000 a year in 2007 to $28,000 a year in 2009. Reporter pay dropped sharply. Over 15,000 media jobs have been lost in just 2 years, which is the fastest rate ever seen in newsrooms. But while many of Peter's friends sent out hundreds of resumes and heard nothing back, he went straight to work as a general assignment reporter in New York for Fox News. A lot of people in the business thought it was a classic case of favoritism. A lot of journalists work hard for years in small areas before they even think about wanting to work for a big network. But Peter didn't do the job at all. Fox News directly gave him the job, making people wonder if it was his skills or family ties that got him in the door. People who didn't like him would always point out that first step and remind him of where he came from. No one in television news had ever seen a father and son work together under the same roof. Steve made a lot of money as a morning show host and was at the top while Peter was trying to make it on the ground. You could tell they didn't work for the same company because their bosses were different, but Steve was always there for his son when he needed help. After an incident involving Peter's sister Mary Doocy, who worked for the FBI, Congressman James Comer said the two were working together to get bad news about him. It was called rude by Fox News, but it showed how bad things can get when family work and writing happen at the same place of business. From 2009 to 2012, Fox News sent Peter to some of the most dangerous breaking news stories they could find. Anything that would show he could do real news, like natural disasters, tragedies, or live scenes with a lot of chaos. It was a place to test. It was a simple idea. The talk of favoritism would stop if he did well in these high-stakes situations. He gave Fox the coverage they wanted and developed a sharp, aggressive style that would become his trademark. Still, doubters asked if those jobs would have been given to someone else so quickly if they didn't have his last name. His rise through the network happened very quickly. He made his way from New York to Chicago and then straight to Washington, D.C. in his first year. By 2010, where he started writing about politics. That kind of move takes years most of the time. At only 23, though, Peter was already in Washington, D.C. writing about big political tales. Any ambitious writer would have liked to be there, and some people thought his family name put him there. By the time of the 2012 election, Peter was becoming a more important political reporter for Fox News, bringing back the heated race between Obama and Romney. Steve, on the other hand, decided how to talk about the race on the morning show. Steve said that Obama had offered hope and change, but hadn't kept his word on election day. The tone people heard in the morning while Peter was out campaigning was that one. On election night, the network reportedly didn't want to accept Obama's win, with Karl Rove arguing on radio about the Ohio call. For Peter, it was a very helpful time to learn things that prepared him for his job as a top-level political reporter. Everything would change in one night in 2011. The news that Osama bin Laden had been killed came out on May 1st. When he was 24, Peter ran away from his D.C., ran all the way to Pennsylvania Avenue. A huge crowd of people chanted and partied outside the White House all night long. He said it felt great to know that we got him. He had no idea that this moment would lead to the most important story of his career. Soon after, he was brought in secret to Robert O'Neill, a member of SEAL Team 6, and the person who would later say he was the one who killed bin Laden. Peter began the most sensitive and dangerous study of his life when he was 27 years old. He gained O'Neill's trust in secret for more than 2 years. They met in a dull Irish bar in Pentagon City, not exactly the most exciting place for a story that could change the world. The operation was known as Gatewood inside Fox News, after the Army general who captured Apache leader Geronimo. Saw the exact code word the SEALs used to say for sure that bin Laden was dead. That code was used to keep the secret safe in every flight reservation, production note, and talk about the project. In the end, O'Neill agreed to talk on camera, which was against the SEALs' unspoken rule of quiet. They were both taking a huge risk. A military blog leaked O'Neill's name just days before the program was supposed to air. Peter wasn't scared, though. Fox was the only one who could get the story in his own words. O'Neill talked about how he shot bin Laden twice in the face and then watched him die. He talked about how the team thought they were only going one way. He remembered how strange it felt to watch President Obama announce bin Laden's death while standing next to the terrorist's body. The two-part documentary broke Fox News records when it ran on November 11th and 12th, 2014. There were 3.37 million watchers on the second night, which tied the O'Reilly factor for the most viewers on the network that week. He went from being a young reporter with a famous father to one of the most recognizable names in American cable news in an instant. In October 2017, a hallway in the U.S. Capitol became the place where one of John McCain's last unforgettable moments took place. On the 18th of that month, Peter Doocy went up to the Arizona senator and asked if his relationship with President Trump was so bad that he wouldn't back anything Trump brought to him. McCain looked at him straight in the eyes, and the answer came quickly. The brave soldier wasn't done yet. "Do you mean that I'm going to act in a way that stops everything because I don't agree with something?" That question is stupid. His voice was so sharp that it cut through the noise in the hallway. A few months ago, McCain was the deciding vote against Trump's plan to get rid of Obamacare. Doocy had been working toward that moment for years. He worked on a style that would make him Fox News' most controversial White House reporter from 2014 to 2017. He didn't say unnecessary things. He asked short, sharp questions that were meant to catch lawmakers off guard in the brief times between events. He learned how to turn complicated political problems into short sound bites that could make the news a lot faster with the help of producer Pat Ward. He got an answer more than half of the time. At a time when lawmakers tried to avoid anything risky, that was very impressive. It was interesting and sometimes embarrassing that his questions often had an edge to them. This got both praise and criticism. Before he became famous for politics, Doocy learned the ropes during some of the worst times in American history. He wrote this from Newtown, Connecticut, in December 2012, after the Sandy Hook shooting that killed 20 children and 6 staff members. After 4 months, he was in Boston writing about what happened after the marathon bombings that killed 3 and hurt hundreds. 12 people had been killed at the Navy Yard in Washington, D.C. in September 2013. He was standing outside of the building. It was there that 2 prisoners who had escaped from the Clinton Correctional Facility in New York were being sought in 2015. In the same year, he covered the killing of reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward live on TV. These tasks showed that he could report clearly and correctly even when things were going crazy. By 2018, he was once again interested in politics. The congressional elections were as exciting as a race for president. GOP wanted to keep the Senate, while Democrats wanted to take over the House. Doocy followed races that would change Washington by going to Arizona, California, Florida, New Jersey, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Virginia, all of which were competitive states. The Democrats won 40 seats in the House. The Senate stayed with the Republicans. Trump's last 2 years in office were marked by this change, which Doocy saw happen. It wasn't just Republicans that he fought with. From 2014 on, Democrats started getting ready for the questions he would ask. They knew how he liked to dress. Direct, sometimes loaded, and almost always meant to make someone respond. By 2017, They were taking steps to fight back before he even spoke. This set the stage for the fights during the Biden administration that made the news. The White House then came. Fox News brought it to light on June 17, 2024. Peter Doocy was now the chief White House reporter. This man began to rise when he joined the Biden beat in January 2021. He was only 36 years old and had just finished campaigning for 2020. A lot of what he said to Biden went online, especially the time the president used the same insult that McCain had heard years before. Before that raise on January 30th, 2020, he got a big break. A few days before the caucuses in Des Moines, Iowa, he got a rare chance to meet with President Trump up close. The process of impeachment was well underway, and Trump was very careful about when he talked to the public. Doocy made it. That talk on Fox News was one of the most important events in his life. He was able to get conversations with Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, and Amy Klobuchar during important times in their campaigns during the Democratic primaries that same year. When he talked to her, Harris was still seen as the favorite. Buttigieg was getting more votes. Klobuchar had just finished third in New Hampshire, which was a good finish. Getting that kind of access was important because there were over 20 other prospects. But Joe Biden was his most important long-term job. Between April 2019, when Biden announced he was running, and November 2020, when he won, Doocy stayed on the path. Even though Biden lost early in Iowa and New Hampshire, he came back in South Carolina. The Georgia Senate runoffs on January 5, 2021, were right after Biden's victory and were also very important. It was unclear who would run the Senate. The races cost more than $500 million altogether, which makes them the most expensive in Senate history. Doocy wrote about both races, Jon Ossoff versus David Perdue, Kelly Loeffler versus Raphael Warnock. Both Democrats won, so there was a 50-50 split in their party. Vice President Harris broke the tie. That outcome shaped Biden's early leadership and made it possible for big bills like the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan to be passed. In the White House conference room, Peter Doocy became well known. From January to May 2022, he talked back and forth with Jen Psaki, who was his press secretary, almost every day. He really pushed her on the trillion-dollar plan to rebuild better, on COVID policies, and on making sure everyone gets a vaccine. In July 2021, Psaki said that one of his questions about vaccines was biased and wrong. On camera, they often said mean things to each other, but when they weren't on stage, they respected each other. In a surprise move, Doocy told Psaki he was sorry to see her go when she said she was going. He was thanked for always being very polite. Videos of them at their most angry went viral. Psaki bombs were what fans called them. At that time, inflation had reached its highest level in almost 40 years, which made people less likely to support him. After less than an hour, Biden called Doocy and told him it wasn't personal. Doocy joked on TV that no one had checked the facts of what the president said yet, which made everyone laugh. The fights didn't stop when Corinne Jean-Pierre took over in May 2022. She was the first black woman in the part to say she was gay. Doocy questioned her about tweets in which she said the 2016 election was stolen. He asked why MAGA Republicans were attacked for denying the results when she had said the same thing. When they talked about the border, things got more heated, especially in December 2024, when Biden released his son Hunter from prison without warning. She had already told reporters that there would be no pardon, so Doocy asked her if she felt she should say sorry to the public. When people asked Jean-Pierre questions, she often sent them to other offices. However, her defensive attitude became part of how people saw her. Doocy's hardest questions weren't just about politics in the United States. During the chaotic exit from Afghanistan in August 2021, he asked Psaki about the Americans who were stuck in the country as the Taliban moved in. She said the word was careless, but on August 15th, Kabul fell much faster than intelligence had expected. The U.S. officially pulled out on August 30th, leaving behind friends and a lot of heated debate. Doocy's questions were mostly about the difference between what the government said and what was happening on the ground. They said it was done on purpose by pointing to the end of policies like remain in Mexico, catch and release, and stop construction of the border wall. Doocy came with numbers about crossings, drug discoveries, and people being sent back to their home countries. His questions about large-scale release programs and problems with law enforcement often got the most attention in the news, putting the government on the defense. In his life after leaving politics, Doocy had a calmer time. He met Hillary Vaughn, a Fox business reporter, around 2017. They both worked in different parts of the network but often covered big news in the same building. Even though they had a lot going on, they made time for each other. They didn't tell anyone about their relationship for almost 4 years. No public visits or posts on social media with each other. A lot of their co-workers didn't even know. Almost everyone was shocked when they said they were getting married in 2020. They were going to get married in January 2021, but the pandemic changed their minds. Due to restrictions, vendors had to be rebooked, guest names had to be changed, and the date had to be moved. They picked April 26, 2021, and the extra time worked out well. In South Carolina, spring brought beautiful weather for their party outside. The wedding took place at the Montage Palmetto Bluff, a high-end resort that had previously been the site of other famous weddings. Only 18 people were invited. His dad, Steve Doocy, was his best man and gave the speech. Steve Doocy was there to talk about the Simply Happy cookbook, his brand new book. Everything looked fine. Until Peter said in passing that his wife Hillary was always hungry. It took a second for the words to click. This was how they told everyone they were pregnant. Hillary had been covering Capitol Hill while she was sick with morning sickness, but she never let it show on camera. Everyone she worked with didn't know. They were caught off guard by the surprise because it wasn't meant to be more than a cookbook plug. Due to COVID, their wedding had to be changed from January 2021 to April 2021, which added another twist to the story. Only 18 people showed up to their small wedding in South Carolina. This time, the moment happened live, without any plans, and will be remembered forever. On February 1st, 2023, that surprise came true. The press room at the White House joined in the fun. To make people laugh, Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, said the baby should be called Corinne. Peter fired back at President Biden with Joe C. Fian. Later, Hillary said that being a mom was the best job she'd ever had, and reminded her of chasing politicians for answers. Steve Doocy told the world live about the news that same day. He was proud to say that he and his wife Kathy were ready to watch so the new parents could go out. Bridget Blake, their healthy daughter, was already a part of the Fox News family story. 2 years later, in April 2025, Peter was in a very different news story. This time, he was in America's office. He was being teased by Dana Perino, who asked him if he was still ducking birds. People who watched made the events into running jokes. Birds thought he was a tree, he said. Some even made up stories about birds that are territorial. Peter asked Trump in jest to do something about them. The videos went everywhere. The Dooces had another big event in their lives just a few days after the second attack. Hillary gave birth to George Jack, their second child. On tax day, when Hillary was covering Capitol Hill, it all began. Her doctor told her at a regular visit that the baby was ready. She made fun of the idea that he might be sick of hearing about taxes. Peter thought it was a great idea because it was also his son's birthday, and he would never forget their anniversary. Hillary laughed and said that at least Peter had begun their tax work early. They told People magazine about George's birth on April 24th, and Hillary was thrilled to add Boy Mom to her list of titles, and letting people know how dangerous it is to change diapers. In June 2023, between these events, the pair bought something very important. The house they bought cost $1.68 million and is in Fairfax, Virginia. The 5-bedroom, 5.5-bathroom house that closed on June 8th was only 40 minutes from the White House. A full gym, a wet bar, and each bedroom having its own bathroom were some of the things that made it special. The office even had its own door. In December 2024, the house was a part of their next news. They took a picture of Bridget for Christmas with a letter to Santa that said, "Dear Santa, baby brother, please love Bridget." By 2025, Peter's work had taken him far beyond what people had thought he would earn at the start. It was thought that he might be worth up to $2 million, but now he's worth $3 million. He built this up in just 16 years at Fox News. He started as a new college graduate in 2009 and quickly became one of the most famous White House reporters in the country. Many people were surprised by his pay alone. $750,000 a year, not the $100,000 that was often said. He most likely made more with bonuses and extra shows. He was already one of the best-paid writers in Washington, D.C. at age 37. To give you an idea, his dad, Steve, made $4 million a year presenting Fox and Friends. Peter's rise showed how quickly a job in political news could make a lot of money.